Top 10 military superpowers in the world. Hello and welcome to Info Prime, where we bring to you latest news and your favorite stories. If it is your first time here, be sure to subscribe and turn on notification bells. Today, we will be looking at the top 10 military superpowers in the world. For many years, military power was widely considered the primary source of a state's power. However, towards the end of the Cold War, economic power took over. A prevalent narrative about the end of history, combined with a decrease in military confrontations, led to a belief, or hope, that wars would largely be a thing of the past. However, fast forward today, military power appears to be back. Military confrontations, including those between great powers, have re-entered Western Europeans' collective imagination following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Considering this is currently the talk of the world, we thought it wise to bring to you a ranking of the top 10 most powerful militaries in the world. Let's go. At number 10, we have Turkey. Officially, the Republic of Turkey is a transcontinental country located mainly on Anatolia in Western Asia, with a portion on the Balkans in Southeast Europe. The Turkish Armed Forces is the second largest standing military force in NATO, after the US Armed Forces, with an estimated strength in 2021 of 895,000 military and paramilitary personnel. Its armed forces are one of the largest in the Eastern Mediterranean. Although lacking an aircraft carrier, only 5 countries on Credit Suisse's list have more submarines than Turkey. In addition, the country can lay claim to an impressively large tank fleet as well as numerous aircraft and attack helicopters. It is also a committed member of the F-35 program. The nation has a military budget of over $18 billion, with a power index score of 0.1961. Number 9. Italy. Country of South-Central Europe, occupying a peninsula that juts deep into the Mediterranean Sea. Italy comprises some of the most varied and scenic landscapes on Earth, and is often described as a country shaped like a boot. The Italian armed forces encompass the Italian Army, the Italian Navy and the Italian Air Force. A fourth branch of the armed forces, known as the Carabinieri, take on the role as the nation's military police and are also involved in missions and operations abroad as a combat force. The Italian military placed highly on Credit Suisse's report due to the country's possession of 2 active aircraft carriers. These carriers, in addition to the country's relatively large submarine and attack helicopter fleets, drastically boosted Italy's ranking. Its military budget is over $34 billion and has an index score of 0.1801. Number 8. United Kingdom. The British Armed Forces, also known as Her Majesty's Armed Forces, are the military services responsible for the defense of the United Kingdom, its overseas territories and the Crown dependencies. They also promote the UK's wider interests, support international peacekeeping efforts and provide humanitarian aid. For 2022, United Kingdom is ranked 8 of 140 out of the countries considered for the annual GFP review. It holds a power index score of 0.1382. Since the formation of the Kingdom of Great Britain in 1707, the armed forces have seen action in a number of major wars involving the world's great powers, including the 7 Years' War, the American Revolutionary War, the Napoleonic Wars, the 1853-1856 Crimean War, the First World War, and the Second World War. It has invested about $60 billion on its military. At number 7, France. The French armed forces encompass the Army, the Navy, the Air and Space Force and the Gendarmerie of the French Republic. The President of France heads the armed forces as Chief of the Armed Forces. France has the 6th largest defense budget in the world and the 1st in the European Union. Its military is said to be relatively small but highly trained, professional and capable of force projection. The country has the nearly new aircraft carrier the Charles de Gaulle, and France routinely engages in military deployments throughout Africa to help stabilize governments and fight against extremism. It has a power index score of 0.1283 and has invested over $35 billion into its military. Number 6. South Korea. The Republic of Korea Armed Forces, also known as the ROK Armed Forces, are the armed forces of South Korea. The ROK Armed Forces is one of the largest and most powerful standing armed forces in the world, with a reported personnel strength of 3,750,000 in 2020. Over the years, South Korea was left with little choice but to have a large and capable military in the face of potential North Korean aggression. Thus, in the face of such an adversary, South Korea has gone on to become one of the strongest military powers in the world, possessing a number of submarines, attack helicopters, and active personnel. The country also has numerous tanks and the sixth largest air force in the world. Its military budget is over $62 billion and has an index score of 0.1261. At number 5, we have Japan. The Japan Self-Defense Forces, also known as the Japanese Armed Forces, are the unified military forces of Japan established in 1954. The Self-Defense Forces consists of the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force, the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, and the Japan Air Self-Defense Force. In absolute terms, the Japanese military is relatively small. Nonetheless, the country is extremely well equipped. According to Credit Suisse, it has the fourth largest submarine fleet in the list. Japan also has 4 aircraft carriers, although these vessels are only equipped with helicopter fleets. Japan also has the fourth largest attack helicopter fleet behind China, Russia, and the US. It has a huge military budget of $50.3 million, with an index ranking of 0.1195. In fourth position, we have India. The Indian Armed Forces are the military forces of the Republic of India. It consists of 3 professional uniformed services: the Indian Army, Indian Navy, and Indian Air Force. With strength of over 1.4 million active personnel, it is the world's second largest military force and has the world's largest volunteer army. It also has the third largest defense budget in the world of over $54 billion, which includes $20.26 billion to cover pay and allowances for the more than 1.5 billion military personnel. This does not include the defense pensions of retired personnel. It has an index ranking of 0.0979. Number 3, China. The People's Liberation Army is the Army of China. Besides the Central Military Commission and several minor units directly under it, its armed force has 5 major service branches: the Ground Force, Navy, Air Force, Rocket Force, and the Strategic Support Force. A majority of military units around the country are assigned to one of 5 theater commands by geographical location. China has the world's largest military force and constitutes the second largest defense budget in the world, which is an astonishing $229.5 billion. It is also one of the fastest modernizing militaries in the world, with significant regional defense and rising global power projection capabilities. It has an index ranking of 0.0511. Coming in second, we have Russia. The Russian armed forces are one of the world's largest military forces, with around 1 million active duty personnel, which is the world's 5th largest, and at least 2 million reserve personnel. It is mandatory for all male citizens aged 18-27 to be drafted for a year of service in the armed forces. As the world's second most powerful military, the Russian armed forces have the world's largest stockpile of nuclear weapons. It possesses the second largest fleet of ballistic missile submarines and is one of only 3 militaries operating strategic bombers. The Russian armed forces have the world's largest tank forces and the second most powerful air force and navy fleet. Russia has the world's 4th highest military budget, which is about $70 billion. It has an index ranking of 0.0501. And coming in first place, we have the United States of America. The U.S. Armed Forces are the military forces of the United States of America. The armed forces consists of 6 service branches: the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, Space Force, and Coast Guard. Despite sequestration and other spending cuts, the United States spends more money, approximately $768 billion, on defense than the next 9 countries on Credit Suisse's index combined. America's biggest conventional military advantage is its fleet of 10 aircraft carriers. In comparison, India, which is constructing its 3rd carrier, has the 2nd most carriers in the world. The US also has by far the most aircraft of any country, cutting-edge technology like the Navy's new railgun, a large and well-trained human force, and that's not even counting the world's largest nuclear arsenal. It has an index ranking of 0.0453. And that's it for our ranking of the world's strongest military superpowers. Make sure to leave your thoughts in the comments. Do not forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more of these. Thanks for watching, and until next time.